Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. We've recently found out that a Dwarf Slayer army of Infamy is on the way for Warhammer the Old World, and I thought it'd be fun to start a little conversation around what we might find in that list.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description.
The recent summer preview gave us details of two upcoming Arcane Journals, and the War of Settra's Fury is the first one, and there's this really cool line here that lets us know there are various armies of Infamy on the way, including a Dwarf Slayer one. Going back over a year or so now, with the release of the Dwarfen Mountain Holds Arcane Journal, we saw a brand new miniature and profile for Ungridden Iron Fist in his younger form, obviously in this new timeline of Warhammer the Old World, but it didn't quite give us a full Slayer list like many people had hoped. With that Dwarfen release, we also had Doomseekers and a Goblin here, these brilliant old Slayer miniatures, and you could kind of make a Slayer-esque list. In fact, it's something I was looking to do and started to collect and build myself using the Royal Clans list, which is the kind of closest you could get to a Slayer-themed army. There were non-Slayer things in there. You have to take non-Slayer items, but I was building some conversions and trying to theme them to a kind of a Slayer idea. Now that's been on hold for a little while. Anyway, maybe it's a good thing because we've got this Slayer list on the way. Now I thought it'd be a bit of fun to look back on previous editions Slayer lists and what we were able to do before, but also maybe look at those and see if there's any clues there as to what we may get in the future for Warhammer the Old World. Now I'm going to focus on 6th edition. Not only does 6th edition have an awful lot of things in common with Warhammer the Old World and the way the game works, this is where you'll see most of your Slayer action as well. First up, we have the first Dwarf army book in 6th edition. They kind of got two. One was a 7th edition list, really, that came right at the end of 6th edition. But in this original 6th edition army book, there was lots of themed lists at the back, and these were all brilliant. They went away in 7th edition, which was a bit of a shame. And we have the Throng of Karak Kadrin, and there's not an awful lot going on here, if I'm honest with you. These are thematic fun lists at the back of these 6th edition army books. It has a list of characters that you can take, and one of them must be a Slayer, etc, etc. Core units is just Slayers. Special units are warriors. You can have hammerers in there as well, but only if the Slayer King is present. So as you can see there, they're not really just Slayer themed units. And then for rare, you can have crossbowmen and thunderers. So really it's about restricting some of the other things that you could take in terms of war machines and that kind of thing. As fun as that is, that's not really super inspiring if you love the idea of orange haired short gents charging into battle and not having any regular troops on the table as well. And then something else came along which gives us the true Slayer army list that people talk about quite a lot, and that was the Storm of Chaos supplement. And while this list is only 3 pages long or so, it's something much more reminiscent of a modern day army of Infamy. There's special rules, there's enough units there that are themed slightly better. It's not perfect, but I think if we're going to see anything brought over from 6th edition, then this will give us bigger clues than maybe anything else that's come before Warhammer the Old World. So let's have a little look at the special rules. There's a good chance, I think, that at least one of these may find its way into the Army of Infamy. The first special rule is look Snorri Trolls, a 2d6 move forward before the first player's turn after deployment, which is definitely a way around those shorter legs and the lower movement of dwarves, and potentially gets them moving up the board, and it's definitely in character and lore of them charging forward. I quite like that. It's really thematic. The next one is a little bit akin to the Doomseeker rule, a glorious death. And this is really good fun. So basically any dwarf slayers that are killed by an enemy with a toughness of 5 or more, you can get victory points. You get 10 victory points towards the army's total, which is, again, quite a small amount, but I could see something like that being brought over to Warhammer. The old one is nice and thematic, nice and fun, and there's some previous of that with current rules. The next one is all about Dispel Dice, so extra magical protection, which obviously works with a different magical system, but again, you could well find a special rule in the new army of Infamy that is similar to that or relates to that in some kind of way, extra magical protection, which would be pretty cool. And then the last one, First Amongst Slayers, is just a rule about how you assign your generalship to one of the Slayers who traditionally, well, definitely in that version of the rules, couldn't become a general, and this kind of got around that slightly. Again, that's something that you see covered off by part of the course, really. I imagine that the army of Infamy won't just be Ungrim. I'm hopeful that a different Slayer will be able to become the general of the army. I imagine that's the way it'll be, but we shall see, I guess. So then we have Slayer skills, and these again are quite familiar with some of the things we see turning up in modern armies of Infamy. The first one is Wards of Grimnar, which is basically a way of purchasing some ward saves via tattoos. I'll come back to that a little bit later because I think that would be something that would be really useful. And we also have the Master Rune of Grimnir, which is a runic standard as well that can protect against shooting and even cannonballs. Again, more of that kind of protection for these unarmored, slow-moving dwarves trying to get across the table. And then aside from the magical protection, the next ones are more kind of offensive, so to speak, and we have Death Blow. If the Slayer is killed in close combat, he immediately makes all of his attacks before being removed as a casualty, which is quite cool. Killing Blow, well, that was a special rule and is now, it might be slightly different. Beast Slayer, each wound inflicted by a Slayer counts double towards the round's combat resolution, so increasing your combat res there as well. Vampire Slayer, against enemies with a toughness of 5 or more, any unsaved wounds inflicted by the Slayer becomes D6 wounds, so that's quite cool as well. And then you've got Skaven Slayer, Dragon Slayer and Demon Slayer add-ons as well. The number of attacks the Slayer has is multiplied by the number of enemy models in base contact up to a maximum of 10, etc, etc. These are all really fun and thematic things. I think with adjustments to match the current rule set, these would all be really, really cool, really thematic and would work. I'm sure we're going to see some stuff like this. So what was in that 6th edition Storm of Chaos Slayer list? Let's have a little look. We have Demon Slayers and Dragon Slayers as the heroes at the time. The Demon Slayers, the Lord level. I'm sure we'll have something very, very similar. Of course, the core is Troll Slayers, which makes loads and loads of sense. Doom Seekers, again, they're going to be in there, I am sure. And then we have Brotherhood of Grimnar, which is basically an elite version of Troll Slayers. I think they got an extra initiative and an extra strength there as well. And then we have Long John's Slayer Pirates, which I know people will be super, super happy to see again. And of course, the Goblin Hewer. Now, I kind of hope we're going to get something very, very close to that. I don't necessarily want to see loads and loads of wacky new things going on there. I quite like that. I'd like some rules to definitely provide the ward saves that we saw to hopefully give the Slayer's ability to stay alive a little bit longer. Maybe not just against shooting, even if it costs lots of money through lots of talismanic tattoos and things like that. I'd like to be able to give them saves to keep them alive. They're expensive miniatures anyway. It's going to be elite army. You want to make sure that they can make their way into combat and stay there. So those would be really, really good. So tattoos, I think we're going to see some kind of ward save that way, whether it's just shooting or maybe there's different options. So you can have one that's of everything, one that's just magic resistance, one that's just for shooting, and maybe you have to sort of make your choices for those. But those would be good. But that army list, I'd love to see almost as it is, with a way of modernising it towards the Warhammer, the old world rule set as we have right now. I love the Brotherhood of Grimnir. I think that's cool. It's nice to have something that's slightly different from just your standard Slayer units. Doomseekers are fantastic, and Goblin Heroes. And again, I just like to see that as the army. I'd be very happy to run a themed list when you don't have any normal dwarfs in it at all. A cart version would be good to go with the Slayers. That'd be a fun conversion to do. Maybe they can drink lots of ale or something that gives them a boost in that way. I'd really like to see something like that as well. Long John Slayer Pirates would be really fun, and hopefully they will look to bring them back as a made to order or a metal returning unit. I don't think we're going to get a lot of new plastic units with this book, aside from what we've already been shown. Maybe we won't get anything other than those Tomb Kings, but these, if the molds exist and the masters exist, would be really fun to see back again. And now they might have a different name, because I think that's a special character name that doesn't exist in this timeline. But I love the idea that they are mercenary pirates maybe, and they can be part of the list, and then maybe if they have the mercenary tag, they can be used in other lists as well. It's always good when you have these armies of infamy to have entries that can be used by people who don't play the particular armies in that book as well. So I'd love to see them back. I think they would sell so well. People really want those miniatures, even if they were just made to order. But again, it adds something else to the tabletop. If you've got just Slayers, which will look cool, it's just a different model to paint a different unit there, which I think would be great. Is there anything else I've missed? Anything that people could think of? I mean, wish list all you want. I'd love to see another new character. Maybe they'll release a resin or a plastic Slayer miniature. I just have this feeling we're not going to get anything, but let's dream. There's a new resin Slayer model that's more of a generic kind of general miniature, or a BSB model or something like that. Again, I don't necessarily think there will be, but it'd be lovely to be surprised by that. I would probably rather have Long John's Pirates back, if I'm honest with you, rather than a single plastic miniature, because there's so many beautiful metal Slayer miniatures out there. And I do prefer plastic miniatures, but that range is just great, and it's got so much charm, and I don't necessarily think we need lots that way. I don't think we're going to get anything as crazy as a whole box of plastic Slayers. I'd love to be proven wrong there. I've got this feeling this book and those Tomb Kings are going to be it. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long before we find out. We know we got a Border Prince's Army of Infamy in the same book, so I suppose there's a world where some of the units from that, or maybe mercenary units that you can ally in or have in the Dwarven Slayers army list as well. So maybe you could get some peasant bowmen or something like that in there to make up for the lack of missile troops. But again, I'm not too worried about that. I'd rather the focus was on giving the army some special rules to make it work like a Slayer army. Maybe give it some speed boosts like carts or something like that, maybe vanguard, reserve moves, all of those kind of things, something to give them those ward saves would be quite handy, be that as an army special rule or extra tattoos and things, or maybe other upgrades that you can take for all of your units. You can really, maybe you're paying the points for them, but to buff them up, and it's the same as at least giving them a shield, giving them some way to stay alive will be really cool. And maybe they're cheaper if not than they are normally, because they're coming out of the hold, and maybe you can kind of hoard it a little bit more, so they're really powerful when they get into combat, but you've got enough of them to soak up the firepower on the way in. But that's enough of my guesses, and they're not really much of a guess anyway. I was looking at stuff from 6th edition and looking at how that might be copied over to now, because I think that's probably the smartest way to approach this, and we will find out very soon. But what I really would love to know is what you think in the comments below. Give me your predictions of what you think we will see, but also let me know what you would love to see in your wildest dreams from a Slayer Army of Infamy, and what we're going to get in the way of Dwarf Slayers for this book. So thank you very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, do drop that comment below, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Loads of old world stuff on this channel, and there will be loads more to come in the future, and hopefully I will get this book a little bit early to review, the way I usually do for these publications. So I'm really looking forward to that, and as soon as I'm able to, I will bring you content on all of these upcoming old world releases, whenever they may be. I genuinely have no idea how far off we are looking for these at the moment. If you'd like to support me and the channel, please do check out all the links in the video description, including my Patreon, which really is the best way to support me so I can keep making videos like this, and maybe the more useful ones like all the painting tutorials and things that I do as well. Multiple tiers on the Patreon to suit many different needs, whether you want just to support me and the channel, or you'd like painting tuition and coaching as well. Please come and join the Discord, completely free to do so. It's a very friendly place to chat hobby. and please support the channel sponsor Counterattack Bases. There's a link to those in the video description as well. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.